it's Sasha, and today I am doing the Can't Say I Didn't Try book tag. So this book tag was created by the bumbling blogger over on booktube. I'll link their channel down below. And I was tagged by Rye over from Rye's Reading Corner, who I will also tag down below. And this is just a fun tag with like 11 questions that just discuss things you don't like in books or books that you didn't like. It's kind of like the anti-TBR tag kind of situation, but a little bit different. So because I was tagged, I am doing it, and I think it's going to be fun. I love spilling some tea on some booktube faves. So let's dive in. Number one, we're starting off with a bang, a book you should have DNF'd. And let's discuss how I told everybody I wasn't going to bring these books into 2021 with me. But there's nothing this year that I read that I felt like I should have DNF'd. Oh, that's a lie. Okay, never mind. I have 3 books to choose from. 2 that I told myself I would not bring into 2021, like we need to leave the past in the past, and 1 for this year. So I guess I'll discuss what the first year, this year, whatever, is, and that is Conviction by Denise Mina. I should have DNF'd this. Realistically, I should have just said, you know what, this is not for me. This is awful. But I kind of wanted to see if it got better. And spoiler alert, it did not. No one in the Winers Book Club liked it. We all gave it 1 star. It was a disaster. And our live show, still the funniest thing that's ever happened to us. Great, 10 out of 10. But the book itself sucked. And so for us to read that for the book club was truly a tragedy. And I hated it. And I should have DNF'd it, but I didn't. And then the other 2 I'm going to touch on briefly. First is I'll Give You the Sun by Jandy Nelson. I hate this book. This book had so many issues. It had so many problems that just weren't challenged throughout the narrative. Everything sucked. Clark Gable was mentioned entirely too many times, and people were outed, and there were no consequences.
Yeah, it's a great story. Love it.
No, it's trash. But Noah and I both hated it, and so we have a really good review. Spoiler filled, of course, because we had to discuss what the hell happened. And yes, it was necessary. But we have that on the channel. I'll link it down below if you haven't seen it. We're just literally eating nuggets and discussing how we hated I'll Give You the Sun. And yes, I did lose subscribers because yeah, here we are. Also, the next one is, I'm so sorry, Darian. The Secret History. I should have DNF'd that. That was another Winers Book Club pick for September, and I hated it.
It just simply wasn't good.
It was too long. There were absolutely no likable characters, and I should have given up after several things happened. But I kept thinking it was going to get better, and I kept being like, okay, you know, I can excuse this because of this, and blah, blah, blah. At the end, I ended up giving it 1 out of 5 stars. Hated it. It was literally absolutely not it. So I should have DNF'd all 3 of those books, and I'm sorry because I know those 2 of the 3 are very popular, but they just were not for me. Number 2, the most books that you've read without finishing a series. This is hilarious to me. I've read the entire Throne of Glass series except for 300 pages of the last book, Kingdom of Ash. I DNF'd Kingdom of Ash about 600 pages in because I was like, I can't put myself through this anymore. This is just 100% not going to happen. I was so tired of the constant similar fight scenes. I was so tired of Aelin because she's really just annoying, and I hate Rowan, so that was just not working out, and all of the other characters meant nothing to me as well. Plus, I kind of skimmed over Tower of Dawn, which probably you should not do because there were characters from Tower of Dawn that were in Kingdom of Ash, and I was like, who are you? What are you doing here? And yeah, it would have been explained if I had actually like fully dove into Tower of Dawn, but I didn't. So maybe that's my fault, but I just didn't like it. So yeah, I put myself through thousands of pages to not read like 300 more. It doesn't make sense. It literally does not make sense. But that's where we're at. Next is a hyped author that you just cannot get behind. And for this, I'm choosing Stephenie Meyer, the author of the infamous Twilight series. So I have not actually read the Twilight series. That is something that I just simply could not put myself through as a teenager. But I have read The Host, and I just don't like her writing. I have read excerpts from Twilight as well as like The Host. Actually, I couldn't even finish The Host. That's how much I didn't like her writing. But I've read excerpts from Twilight, and I've read part of The Host, and I just could not get behind her writing. Her characters don't engage me. There's nothing super exciting about her writing that draws me in. And so while a lot of people love her, part of me feels like it's for the nostalgia, not necessarily the content, because okay, but that's okay. That's completely valid. So I'm not throwing stones or anything. That's just a personal opinion. But yeah, that's just how I feel. And yeah, don't hate me. Okay. Next is a genre you rarely read from. So for this, I have a few. So I rarely read nonfiction, and that's just because I haven't found very many that stick with me. I also don't read a lot of adult books. I personally still really love young adults. A lot of people my age are growing out of young adult, and I can see that. There are certain books, like for example, in Influence, they talked about how at one point her and her best friend were, because I think she's the youngest, I think she's like 16. Anyway, she talks about how her and her friend were in first grade carrying One Direction pencil cases. And I was like, excuse me, I was 13 when they were popular, 12 or 13. Like, that's illegal. You were not in first grade. That's not a thing. And so it made me feel very old, and it kind of put a disconnect within the story. So I understand why people my age aren't really interested in young adult. I completely get that. I completely get that. However, I still really love young adult. And I can't really connect a lot with the adult characters within most stories I've read. So I try to avoid adult more than I try to gravitate toward it. There are some adult that I have on my TBR now, thanks to booktube and thanks to some of my bookish friends that I really want to read, I want to get to. I think they'd be fun. But for the most part, I'm not really that interested in adult as of now. I just want to stick with the young adult hype until I can't anymore. And then I'll switch over to adult. But if we're going to get specific in young adults, sci-fi. I don't read a lot of sci-fi. I guess I'm not that interested in outer space, aliens, stuff like that. Especially aliens. I don't like alien books. I have yet to find a single alien book that I have actually enjoyed. But yeah, I don't have very much sci-fi at all on my shelves. I have like half a shelf dedicated to sci-fi. And yeah, it's not my thing that much. So I'm hoping to get a little bit more into it as I get more into booktube, because there have been some that sound really interesting that booktube has recommended me. So hopefully I can at some point, but I have absolutely zero interest in sci-fi most of the time. Next is the most elusive book. So a book that you can't get your hands on. So it has an exclusive cover, or maybe it's an older edition of something like that. For me, it's the old edition of the ACOTAR series. I love those covers. I don't know why, because they have a person on them, and I don't usually like that, but I think because I don't see their whole face, I can vibe with it. But I hate the new covers. I think they look awful. Obviously, when I do end up splurging and getting the ACOTAR series, I will be getting it in the newer covers, most likely, because I will have no way of getting the new books that they're releasing within the series in the old covers, if that makes sense. So I will definitely probably be purchasing the newer covers, but boy, I would love to get my hands on the older covers, because I just think it is so much better. I think they're much classier. I think they fit me a lot more. I just like it. I understand why they did the cover switch. You know, it matches more with the new adult feel, which is, I believe, what Sarah J Maas was trying to do, but I don't like it. And I am the only one that matters, clearly, so thank you. Next is a book or an author who keeps getting recommended to you, but you know you won't enjoy. So there is a certain series/author who is extremely problematic, who I have literally been recommended to read their books from everybody, from everybody since I was like 10. And that is the series that shall not be named. You know, the kids who go to magic school and they have issues, and the first person's first name rhymes with Larry Snotter. So yes, I personally don't think I'll enjoy those books anymore, because I'm not as into middle grade, and I know the first couple of books are middle grade, but I'm also just not that into fantasy. I mean, I am, but I'm into more like fantasies with female protagonists and not just the one. So yeah, anyway, I still get recommended often. My sister-in-law is like dying to get me to read this book in this book series, but I told her I probably won't be doing that. I'll watch the movies with her, but I probably will not be reading the books. I actually plan on unhauling my entire series, because I just need to make room on my shelf for books that I'm actually going to want to read, and I have a lovely home that I think those will go nicely in. So there's that. But I've been recommended a few times Nevernight by J. Kristoff, another problematic author who I have heard enough about Nevernight thanks to Sydney from Read with Cindy, and I just have no interest in reading about this girl, this 16-year-old girl who could have been written as an adult, and it wouldn't have made a difference. To me, especially having her have been written by a male character, that screams something that I'm uncomfortable with, and I don't ever want to pick it up, and it also just didn't pique my interest as is. Next is a book which has a better cover than the original, like a better foreign cover than the US cover, I think. Does that make sense? A better cover in a different language. Okay, sure. So for this, I actually chose the France version of The Fault in Our Stars. I don't particularly love The Fault in Our Stars. I think it was a good book. Do I think it was a great book? No. It definitely did shape my reading a little bit, but I don't think it holds up the way that it used to. Anyway, the France version, I feel like it encapsulates so much more about what the book actually is, and it's just so subtle and beautiful, whereas the US edition is literally just blue and yellow, and it's like, The Fault in Our Stars, and it's just stupid. Like, it doesn't do anything. It doesn't show you anything about what the story is. It just is there. But the French version actually has a beautiful cover with clouds and they're in the swings, and I just think it's really pretty. So I like that one. Next is a book you've only seen the movie/TV adaptation of, and for this I chose Dumplin' by Julie Murphy. I do have the book. Do I plan on reading it? Absolutely. But it is the first movie I actually watched with really positive plus-size representation, and I loved it. I thought it was great. I didn't actually realize it was a book until I started booktube, so it's definitely one that I have been trying to get to. I did purchase it at a thrift store, and I love it, and I want to read it, but I have seen the movie already, and I thought the movie was fantastic. I would recommend it to literally everybody, but yeah. Next is a book that you would not watch if it got adapted. So if this book was adapted, you just simply would not watch the adaptation. For this, I ended up choosing Fable by Adrienne Young. And I don't know what part of my brain this crawled out of, because that was not a choice. Like, when I was thinking about books that I had read, I was thinking more of like series and like popular books. But then just Fable would not stop leaving my brain, so I had to choose Fable. The reason being, I think the story just did not make sense. Like, they would have to change a lot about the story to make it flow in a productive and interesting manner for a movie setting and a book setting, but we won't get through that. But yeah, I don't think it would work as well as a movie. Plus, they spend a lot of time in the water and on the water talking about boating things and gems, and I don't think it would pique my interest. I feel like if it were made into a movie, it would almost feel like Pirates of the Caribbean ripoff. That's how it would feel, even though it's very, very different. I feel like it's not that different, so it would definitely not work for me as that. Next is a series that shouldn't have been continued. So for this, my obvious answer is the Throne of Glass series. I do think the book series was entirely too long. I think it could have worked in 3 to 4 books, to be perfectly honest, or she could have done what she had done in the ACOTAR series, where she did 3 books in the primary series and then did a spin-off. That could have worked nicely as well, but I think the 7 books, all of which are too long except like 2 of them, it wasn't necessary. But I did want to think about what other series I could think of, and I did end up choosing the Iron Fae series. This is a series written by Julie Kagawa, and I absolutely loved it when I read it. I gave like all 6 or 7 of the books 5 stars. I loved them. However, I do not think it needed the spin-off series. I don't think it added anything to the world. I don't think it added anything to the story. I think it should have wrapped up very nicely with the 3 books, and even the 4th, which focused on our male protagonist. I think that was even okay, but I think having an entire spin-off series, I don't think it worked as well. I think a lot of the answers for this, for me, would be the spin-off series that authors are making out of their old, successful young adult things. I don't think The Maze Runner needed to continue after the 3 trilogy. Like, I don't think The Fever Code needs to exist. I don't think The Kill Order needs to exist. I don't think that should be a thing. I think the trilogy wraps up not well, but good enough. And yeah, do I think book series need to be over 4 books long? No, I don't. There are very few where you will catch me wanting to read the entire series, because I just get bored and I'm just tired of being in the world with the same person, unless I'm like in love with those people. Like, I will read all of Cassandra Clare's novels, but she's smart in the way that she's done it, where she breaks it up into groups of 3, because that's smart, you know, having all of these trilogies in the same world. But if she had written, like, if The Dark Artifices was 7 books, even though it's my favorite fantasy series, I literally would have been so bored, because I would have been like, what else can she do? What else is going to happen? Like, this is not good. So she's smart. I like her. We stand her on this channel, if you couldn't tell. So yes, that is my answer. And the last question is a trope that immediately turns you off from a book. For this, I chose cheating. Of course, I really hate books that have cheating, especially cheating with 0 consequences. I just think it's really unbecoming of a book. I also hate miscommunication. I just think things need to be talked about. You need to discuss how you're feeling with your partners, and people who don't, why? Like, why don't you? It's literally It's so important. And so I hate that in a book because what's the point? What is the point of having a book with miscommunication? So I'll die on that hill. I hate it. And that's that on that. So that is all. Those are the questions. The first person I'm choosing to tag is Coley. And I believe they were going to change their channel name to just her name, which is Coley, instead of Coley Reads. But at the moment, I don't know if that's happened. So their channel will be linked down below, but I don't know for sure what it is named. And next person is Lois from Lo-Chan Reads. The third person is Anzu from Read with Anzu. And finally, Mel from The Bookish Mel. Of course, like I said last tag, please don't feel pressure to do this. I literally don't care if you do or don't. It's just a tag video, so I feel like I have to tag you. So yeah, don't feel pressure. It's totally chill. I literally could care less, could not care less, whatever. And yes, thank you for tuning into this video. Please do not forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more content. I do post twice a week, and I have some really fun videos, especially coming out in April, that you're not going to want to miss out on. And until next time, bye readers!